All right, good morning, y'all. It is Friday, February 16th, and I am not in my usual jovial Friday mood because just been watching the news and thinking about everything that has happened in Florida, and it was just this morning they literally ran through the names and showed pictures and gave a small bio or commentary on each victim. And y'all, I was just doing this trying to prevent the tears from flowing because it's so sad. It is so sad. So I'm sad and I'm angry because this country with these mass shootings is there's just something really wrong with the soul of this country. Something's really wrong with the soul of this country. And you know, every time these mass shootings happen, you always hear the stat, right, that the overwhelming majority of Americans are in support of changes to make it more difficult for people to get their hands on these type guns. You know, are the majority of Americans are in favor of, you know, with these type weapons. You don't want to have weapons out there where somebody could get off 20 or more rounds before they would even have to reload. The damage that they can do, the number of people that they can kill with that kind of a rifle. There's absolutely no reason why anybody who hunts, because you're not trying to shred the animal, there's no reason why anybody who hunts, there's no reason why any lay person needs that type of gun. Now, if you're in the military and you're in Afghanistan or some other military situation where you need to be armed, that's different. That's not what's happening in America. And so we get into this routine around these incidents, whether it's a school shooting, whether it's church members being shot while they're worshiping, you know, whether it's a bunch of first graders sitting in a circle at school, elementary school, who get gunned down. We're in a very, very of how we deal with it. This country on this topic is mentally ill. You know, they always want to try to say, well, maybe it's a mental illness issue, so we don't have to look at the guns. That's bullshit. Any given scenario, any one of these incidents can have all kinds of dynamics. Maybe the person's mentally ill, maybe they're not. You know, so that doesn't mean we don't talk about, okay, but can we have a discussion? Can we make a decision that we don't want people to be able to go out and get automatic assault rifles where they have all of these rounds where they can kill so many people at once? Why do you need that? So then that gets twisted up with, you know, I'm an American and I have the right to bear arms. Yes, you do have the right to bear arms. But you don't have the right to have a military style weapon and kill my child and other people's children when they're in school, or kill churchgoers when they're at church, or kill people who are at a concert, or kill 20-something first graders sitting in a circle starting the day off at school. Elementary school, you do not have that right. Your rights end where harm to the public begins. Say 90% of us want these changes, but it doesn't happen. Why doesn't it happen? We all know why it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen because of the big money of the NRA. They've bought our politicians. Our politicians do not work for us on this topic. Our politicians do not care about the safety of our children more than they care about the funding that they get from the NRA. Bottom line. Bottom line. And so as long as that is the case, nothing is going to change. If for years we've been saying that over 90% of Americans want this change, then see, this speaks to the bullshit that brings our country so many woes when we're trying to interact with each other. That means the NRA, the politicians that have been bought, they control certain narratives and propaganda. And they put those narratives and propaganda information out there. Some segments of the population are going to soak on it and hang on to it for dear life. Now, those people don't care anything about you. If your child was one of the 14-year-olds gunned down this week, that wouldn't move them. If anything, they'd probably come to you and say, hey, you know, it'd be really good for us. You know, sorry about your kid, but it would be really good for us if you could do a commercial for us right now to just say how you're still in support of the NRA, even with what just happened to your child. You know, because we just can't let people, you know, leverage the death of your child to say that we shouldn't have these assault rifles. Are you on board? And maybe somebody will be on board with that, because some people are so deep into the narrative they've been pitched. Oh my God, I even hate to think that you wouldn't be able to see through that, especially if it was your child. But that's how detrimental, that's how destructive, that's how demonic the NRA is, with its proliferation of narratives and the loyalty that they've built, where people are going to be loyal to the NRA and the money that comes with them more so than they are to protecting our children. But for me, the tipping point on this was Sandy Hook. I'm just going to keep it all the way real, okay? When someone went in and gunned down white, suburban, elementary, first graders, and nothing happened, honestly, my thought was, we can forget it. It's a wrap. If the people in charge of this system, if they were not moved by that, for them, if they weren't moved by that, nothing was going to move them. Do you understand? Do you understand the allegiance our politicians have with the NRA? That even the murder, the massacre of 20 first graders, white kids in a suburban area was not enough to change a damn thing. This is not about challenging whether or not you have the right to own a gun. You have a right to own a gun. You can own more than one gun. You can be a gun collector, but you don't need no automatic rifle. You don't. If you're mentally ill, you have a history of violence, you don't need to be a gun owner. You don't. This is another thing that shows you how screwed up and demonic the hold is that the NRA has on America. Our politicians cannot even pass a law to say that people who are on the list that they cannot fly because of something related to terrorism, they're on a list. They will not pass a law to say that these people are unable to buy guns. What the fuck? What? How does that make sense? How does that make sense? If I am watching you, if you're on a list for legitimate reasons because you are a terrorist threat, How are you allowed to buy a gun? Another new law we need. When we talk about people being a terrorist threat, this country needs to stop letting this bias and bigotry only look at people of Middle Eastern descent. Our biggest problem with terrorism right now is domestic terrorism. And it's Billy who's doing the shooting, not Assad. We need a list for that. With all of this technology we have where you can, identify what's going on, you can see people who make social. Hell, the person who just did the shooting at the high school this week, supposedly there was some kind of FBI alert on him because of some Facebook post. So why can't we create a domestic terrorism watch list and prevent those people from owning guns? We can do it, but we won't. Another reason why we have to care, if it's true, especially if it's true that 90% of us Americans want change. That same news story that we're all just so upset about right now, because we too are in a pattern with how we react to this. One day that could be your kid. That could be your niece, your nephew. That could be your family member at a concert. That could be your family member who was at Bible study. That could be your family member who was in the airport. This touches all of us. No one is exempt from it. And regardless of your view, when the mass shooter comes through, he don't give a damn about your view. You, your kid, your family member, your friends, they're going to get it just like everyone else is who's in the midst of that person who's committing this atrocity. So we got to care and we have to act. And so what I am going to do this weekend, I am committing to trying to find some things that are legitimate movements that we can get behind to bring change. And once I find those things, I will come back to this video and edit and add links below in the comment section, just so that you guys could have it as reference. And if you know of other things that are happening that you think are valid and worth people investing their time and energy to make change, then please feel free to post that in the comments too, because y'all, look, we got to protect our kids. We got to protect our kids.